Hey, it's good to have you back on the channel. Today we've got the M8RX Switchback Dante audio interface from Here Technologies, and it is really interesting. Let's take a closer look and see what it does. So the M8RX is a 4x4 Dante device, and that's really helpful. It's got some unique features. There's 4 analog inputs on the back, mic line combo jacks on 1 and 2, and then a 3.5mm stereo input for channels 3 and 4. And you can monitor all those locally here with zero latency monitoring using these blue knobs, and that feeds those right into your headphones here for local monitoring for a musician, for a broadcaster, anything like that. Even a boom operator could use this. It would be really nice for sending traffic back and forth and communicating. But you also get the ability to listen back using the red knobs here to 4 channels from the Dante network. And the way those work as well are channels 1, 2, and then 3, 4 over here on input C. Really interesting and really flexible. You could use this for a musician if you needed to put somebody at a remote location that constantly wants to adjust their microphone level in relationship to the mix that you're sending them. This would be a really good way to do that. You can put their mix on the stereo Dante channel here on C, and then have local inputs for them to adjust and blend in and listen to as well without affecting what this mic is sending back to you. So you would be plugging the microphone into here, and then everybody's picking that off of the Dante network as needed. And each one of these belt packs obviously can be assigned to have any of the Dante traffic back to it. So depending on who has this, they could get a mix, they could get individual inputs and blend those all right here at their station. So really, really interesting capabilities. And for me, though, it's exciting to have something like this with so much functionality, especially phantom power on 2 channels and the returns and an additional stereo input that's all powered over Ethernet. And what that means from working from home or working in a repurposed office environment, something I was talking about in the last video in relation to the Sound Tools Wallcat, this is another example of how you can really take advantage of some of those kind of situations where you might already have a network in your home or office and you might want to use some other spaces to do your recording. You might find a quiet space where you can actually sit with headphones and a computer or your script, and you don't want to drag all the other equipment around. You just want to plug into a network port and set up and go. And this is the kind of thing that could really facilitate that without going crazy budget-wise. So we can take a look at the software here that comes with the Switchback unit, and it's got some basic functionality. There isn't an absolute ton of control in the software yet, and I just got this the other day. I'm not sure at the time of the filming if the Windows version is out yet, so I'm using it with a MacBook Pro. The MacBook Pro has Catalina on it, Dante virtual sound card. It's a whole thing, so less than ideal setup here, but for demo purposes it all works fine. And I will show you the Here Technology software here briefly so we can take a look. And a couple of interesting features that I really like. One of the ideas would be that you're using these in a situation where there's a number of unique musicians or talent that needs a station with an individual mix and the ability to blend in their own local inputs without you as an engineer having to intervene. So again, if you're touring and you've got one engineer mixing from front of house and you've put together some mixes for the musicians that are pretty well in the ballpark, they can then individually blend in their own inputs to an in-ear monitor setup here locally. This would also eliminate the need for a hardwired in-ear monitor pack as well, which is really interesting because those can be extremely expensive if you buy the ones from Shure. So networked ability to do wired in-ears, even just for that without the local inputs, this is an interesting box being PoE. So here in the software, again, they're expecting you to have a number of them in order to help with that. Here, I'll tilt this down real quick if I can, and you can now see the device ID is an RGB LED here. You can see it flickering there, but when you're looking at it in person, that refresh rate is not really visible. And for this individual device, we can go in and we can change the color of that RGB pretty quickly for device identification. So if you've got a number of these out, you can have a red one, you could then have an orange one, a yellow one, so on and so forth. So that way, if you know you're having an issue, right here in the taskbar shows you which color. You'll be able to look across the stage or ask your A2 over intercom, whoever, which pack is it? Oh, it's the green pack. And then you can go and make adjustments. Now you have controls, hardware controls on the back of this unit, these two small push buttons here that are operated by either pressing or pressing and holding, and they work just fine. They show you the result of what you've done with signal LEDs for phantom power and the gain level there. Now the gain adjustments are stepped. They're 3 dB steps, 30, 33, 36, 39, 42, 45, 48, 51, and 54 is the maximum. And then you see it read out there briefly on the signal LEDs on the back to let you know where within that range you are. So from what I can tell with the stepped gain controls, it doesn't seem to be an issue with any of the mics that I have. It's a pretty wide range and certainly plenty to work with most industry standard microphones. I would think for a musician, depending on what it is, you may need to pad these inputs, and that is impossible to do internally. You would have to do that externally. As well as one thing that I really miss at the input level is a high pass filter before you hit the converters. So that's one thing I noticed right away plugging in a condenser mic to talk into, is the high pass filter is really kind of necessary before the converter. So one criticism I have there is that's not available either in software or hardware form, but a high pass filter before the converters would just be really useful in a lot of situations, especially for that local monitor, because obviously you can process with a high pass filter when you get the signal back to the console or wherever it's going. But for the local monitoring, especially with in-ear monitors, using a condenser mic and even talking into it, it was definitely an issue. One other thing I found interesting during my first brief testing was the way that the headphone mixer and everything is routed the last little bit of the way out to your headphones. So what I mean by that is when you go into Dante controller and you patch this, so right now I've got the transmitter from my MacBook Pro Dante virtual sound card over to the receiver, which is this. But I've got channels 1 and 2 of my MacBook Pro sending to 3 and 4 to come out C on this unit. And the reason for that is A and B from the Dante network are sent to both channels of the headphone mix. There's no way to pan these, and there's no way to retain any sort of stereo path if you're using channels 1 and 2, for instance, as your left-right in a DAW or any sort of software playback. Whatever you do patch to these 1 and 2 are going to be sent to both sides of your headphones. So that's an interesting thing. You've just got to keep in mind that if you want to retain stereo output from something like software out of Dante controller through to the actual headphones of this unit, you need to route through return C, so that way you can maintain that. And that's the same for the local inputs as well. There's no way to take the microphone on one and send it just to your left headphone and this one to your right headphone. So for the keyboard players, even though there are a pair of 1/4-inch inputs, if you're monitoring a local stereo input, you must use input C, otherwise you have no way to pan those and the information will be summed to both sides of your headphones. So that's just a little quirk and something that would be interesting if they were able to address somehow in the future. It would just be a little more versatile what you could do with it. But for now, I don't think it's a deal breaker workaround as far as the functionality goes. You just put those stereo sources down a mix, or assign a stereo mix to input C here and be able to work with that either locally or over Dante. I don't think it's a huge thing to overcome, but definitely something that'll catch you out the first time you try to assign Dante returns to this device. So that's some of the basics of what the M8RX is capable of, and I'll link all the specs down below so you can check out more of the details. They're saying it's got premium mic pre's, Burr Brown converters, and a lot of stuff in there that's going to make it hopefully usable in some real demanding situations. Something like this is really exciting, and I think it could be a really interesting utility tool on live events, broadcast events. Again, having a really simple way to send audio back and forth between another crew member or the talent themselves is really interesting in a package this small, and it comes with a belt clip, which I'll give it a try, but I'm not really sure. And you know, first tests, and I was reading around 113 degrees Fahrenheit as an average operating temperature, so I'm not sure I'd want to have that clip to my belt. And as a few really sharp viewers pointed out when I first posted on Instagram with this unit, the actual connection here for the network cable is just a regular RJ45, so that could definitely be something that could be improved. So hit the comments down below and let me know if you have any questions about this unit. If you've used Here Technologies gear in the past and you've got any recommendations or comments about their stuff and your experience, I'd love to hear them. I'm not super familiar with all of their products, especially their current lineup, and I'd love to hear from anybody who's using any of their current stuff. If anybody has the Switchback M8RX already, definitely let us know how you're getting on with it. I'd be very interested to know. I think B&H has it right now as a special order. They're available, but I'd be interested to know in what use case you've got this set up and how it's working out. And I think a lot of other folks would as well. So down in the comments, let me know what you think, and we'll be back with this one down the line for sure as I use it more and have some feedback for you on how it's worked out in real life. I'm really excited to be able to use this, especially being stuck in the house and trying to make the most out of different spaces. I've got plenty of network cable, and I've got PoE switches and the little injector they sent me. So I'm really excited to find some new places around the house to record and to have fun using this little personal Dante interface. Thanks for watching. Thanks to everybody who supports the channel through Patreon. If you have any interest in any of the stuff I talk about in these videos, link down below the DcSoundOp shop, and you'll find pretty much everything there. I'll be back real soon with another video.